This episode of Stories Inside the Man Cave is brought to you by our good friends at Honest. A brand new name, but the same quality remains. Honest Plumbing and Air is the new name. Give them a call at the number on the bottom of your screen. Honest Plumbing and Air, where a handshake still means something.
Case can be made. This is the biggest game of your head coaching career coming up. You're looking for your first conference championship. I'm keeping it real, Mr. Sarkisian.
I appreciate it.
Also, Texas,
I'm real with you guys. I mean,
our buddy Cedric Golden, the veteran sports journalist at the Austin American Statement, keeping it real with Sark. And yes, Steve Sarkisian does keep it real with the fans and the media. That's good to see him humor that, because this is a big week. Texas 10-1 could reach 11 wins for the first time in a long time and clinch a spot in the Big 12 championship. And, well, we're keeping it real. Let's talk about it. Episode 323 of Stories Inside the Man Cave. And if you could, go ahead, if you're watching on YouTube right now, click like and or subscribe if you would, and like and follow our Facebook page and each of our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it nowadays, Instagram, and of course on TikTok. And we really appreciate that. And before we get going, we have to show the latest college football rankings, and I'm pretty sure you can predict it. It looks like Florida State's has now moved out of the top 4 to 5. Washington, after the big win they had in the Pac-12, move up to 4. So it's Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and Washington, and Alabama and Texas remain right where they are, 7 and 8, with Oregon right there with the one-loss team right there leading the way. Some big things are about to change. I really do think so. So I know this sounds repetitive, but at some point, the College Football Playoff Committee has got to step up and realize which team passes the eye test and which one is the better team. But because we're going to have some head-to-head games here very soon, in particular the first weekend of December, which is going to change a lot of things. And the CFP committee is going to have some really, really tough decisions to make. And, of course, who may be that 5? There's going to be some big debates. There may be an undefeated team not get into the postseason, and possibly a good one-loss team. UT, 10-1 on the year. First time they won 10 games in the regular season since 2009. That was the last time last year Texas played for a national championship. Now, I know the word culture is almost cliche because it's talked about a lot and it's part of coach speak, but it really is truly something. And I think Sark was really, I love how candid he was, and he always is in his press conferences, but he was at his best this week. He talked about culture, how it's not a thing that's written on the wall, a slogan. It's not something that you say when you break out of in a team drill in the field and 1, 2, 3 culture. And it's not something you just say, this is our culture. You live it. He mentioned the word organic, and he's right about that. And it really all started with Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson when they were here. They're the ones who started it, really what Sark's culture is all about. And he elaborated on that and what that has meant, because it's become somewhat of a domino effect.
when we have a team meeting and that meeting breaks, I have the same few guys that early on would make sure the team room was clean. There was no Gatorade bottles, there was no tape, there was no trash. And a couple of those guys' names were Roschon Johnson and Bijan Robinson. Well, that elevated to, when those guys were gone, the running back room was the ones that cleaned up the team room. To now, when we break a team meeting, everybody looks around. And so it has grown from two guys that has grown into more, to when we go to the movies on Friday nights before a ball game, if we have a night game, everybody chirps up, pick up your trash. So I know those sound like little things, but in the end, those are really big things to me, because that means that's the way we're thinking all of the time.
That's impressive, because it's more than a domino effect. It's what really is happening when you have a program that everything permeates, expectations, where you have player-led leadership, players policing the team. And if we're going to be Texas specific, you go back to 04, 05, 06, and even the 08 teams, you had good player leadership policing the team, especially that 05 team. You heard about it a lot. The Vince Young, all those guys policing the team, coming forward. This guy doesn't need to be, he's not on board with us. Their own players making hard decisions. And this is amazing. I mean, if you think about it, it's culture and actions speak louder than words. And that's what they have right now. Okay, that culture of Steve Sarkisian and the Longhorns, they're at a very critical point. It is literally as Cedric Golden called, one of the biggest game that's maybe in Sark's career of a season. I mean, his career as a season of game here, because Texas leads the Big 12. This is all with one regular season game remaining. They still haven't clinched a spot, but they can if they just beat Texas Tech. And if they don't, then you're going to the convoluted, very confusing Big 12 scenarios, which involve a lot of tiebreakers. Even though Texas is 7-1, right there amongst that list of teams, Texas only has a head-to-head win against Kansas State, and they did not face Oklahoma State this year. There is a scenario in which Texas can still get in with a loss, but let's just leave that alone. And just to say, for Texas to get in, just win Friday night against Texas Tech. And that is definitely, Friday night will end the Big 12 era in Austin, Texas, as the Longhorns head to the SEC. It's really bittersweet. It's going to be a lot of fun for Texas and OU as they head to the SEC. But you look at a lot of these rivalries that Texas has developed, and we experienced this when the Southwest Conference, Texas, Baylor, Texas Tech, Texas A&M all left the SWC, which obviously is now defunct, to go to the Big 12 and merge with the Big 8. And Joey McGuire, the second-year coach at Texas Tech, he's a Texas guy through and through. Grew up in Texas, watched. He had no rooting interest in Texas or A&M or any of these games. He went to attend those games, as we all did as young people growing up in the state of Texas. That rivalry is important. Well, it's also important to these towns like Lubbock, Waco, Fort Worth. But they're no more after this year, for the unforeseen future, that is, no longer a conference game. And Joey McGuire, as he brings his Texas Tech Red Raiders to Austin, well, he talked about losing this rivalry against Texas.
You're losing some really good, in-state rival games through all this movement. And so I'm, hopeful at some point in time that you could bring those games back. I mean, I'd love to play A&M again. That's one of the deals that's always tough. You've got great games like that. Why go somewhere else and play whenever you can play Texas or you can play Texas A&M? There's no reason to travel to Oregon and, have a game like that when you could have it right here in your own state and have your fan bases, two really strong fan bases, get to watch really good football.
But it is what it is, and Texas and OU will move on to much bigger and better things as far as generating revenue, and that's what this is all about. It's a business. It is truly a business, and that's what it's all about. And so Friday night, a huge game for Texas, because not only does it keep them alive for a Big 12 championship, playing in the Big 12 championship, the outside hopes of getting into the CFP. And that's what it's all about, to play for a national championship. Okay, the Doak Walker Award, which is the award given to the best running back in the country, Bijan Robinson. He won it last year. There are some notable names which are named finalists that you know all too well. The Big 12 influence. Jonathan Brooks, who's out for the year for Texas. That was a tough one to see. He was named a Doak Walker semifinalist, as is Tahj Brooks from Manor, Texas. He's one of the nation's top rushing leaders for Texas Tech. This is his last chance, I think, to play at home in his home against the Longhorns. And, of course, Ollie Gordon II for Oklahoma State. That's just a list of the 10 semifinalists. And, you know, you talk about this Texas Tech matchup. Of course, last week you had some Iowa State players calling out Texas, saying how much they hate them and how much they were going to give them a nice send-off to the SEC, and that didn't work out too well. Well, namely, they were talking about it was an offensive lineman for Iowa State calling out Texas and what they were going to do. Well, naturally, if a lineman's saying that, he was basically insulting or throwing shade or he was talking shit to the UT defensive line. Well, a fan for Texas Tech, it keeps coming. It just I don't understand it. It doesn't. I don't know why anyone would do this, but fans are going to fan, and there was some negativity tossed at T'Vondre Sweat, who is the heart and soul of that Texas defense. This Red Raider fan said Sweat is too fat, in my opinion. The refrigerator in the kitchen in the NFL back in the day. I'm showing my age. Yeah, I know. Anyway, he's an example of a player with some talent for the game, but mostly he's just fat and throws around his weight. I have no idea why any fan would throw anything like that out and say something as ridiculous as that. This is the same guy who could shut down Texas Tech's run game. I don't get it. And that smile on T'Vondre's face is probably what he'll have when he's back there potentially in the backfield against Texas Tech. Of course, fans are going to fan. They're going to be themselves. There's always a few of them like that, but it's definitely not a sign of the majority. But I never understand. What makes you think that? He's just a fat guy throwing around his weight. That's potentially a top 3-round draft pick in the NFL draft coming up this next year. This episode of Stories Inside the Man Cave podcast is brought to you by our good friend Jim Saxton at Jim Saxton State Farm Insurance Agency. For all of your insurance needs, log on to saxtoninsurance.com or stop by and give them a visit. They're right across the street from the iconic and legendary Matt's El Rancho on South Lamar in Austin. Jimmy Saxton, appreciate you, my friend. You have been the number one supporter from day one. Give Jimmy a call. Hey, there's a new bar in College Station. Johnny Football has a new bar that is either opening soon or just open. Johnny Manziel, his own bar in the Brazos Valley, College Station. What could go wrong? But hey, I admire him. He's an entrepreneur in his post-football days. May have to go check that out. Clearly recruited great talent for that promo on Instagram. It's called Johnny Manziel's Cash Bar. Hey, let's end things with a foot race between RG3 and Dabo Sweeney at Death Valley at Clemson. I love it. And Dabo still has wheels. Really fast for his age. That's incredible. RG3 clearly still has it. And he's multitasking. He's got the microphone and everything. RG3 and Dabo Sweeney before a Clemson game. That is impressive. You guys have a great Thanksgiving. And when in doubt, it's always good to talk about it.